I hope everyone had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I know I had a really good Thanksgiving. I mean, it was my birthday weekend. Um, so I got a brand new desk and a brand new setup. So I rearranged my whole YouTube setup. I'm no longer doing it off my bed or in a corner of my room. Um, yeah, I'm really excited. The Packers, my Green Bay Packers, had a phenomenal uh, game against the Lions, which very excited about. But the most important thing to me with this YouTube channel is doing movie news and movie stuff and what I love to do. My birthday movie is, of course, Spider-Man 2002. And with it, of course, being my birthday on Monday, I watched it. And I'm here to give my review for Spider-Man 2002. Spider-Man 2002. It's just the movie I grew up on. It's the movie that made me love movies. It's the movie that made me love Spider-Man. It's also the movie that made me break down what a good movie is. Like action, romance, character development, music. I feel this movie has everything that a movie should be. I feel when they go into film making, they should sit down and watch this movie. Now, this may be a little overhyping this movie, but that's just how much I love this movie. When I was a kid, I'd sit down, I'd put in the VHS tape, and hit play, watch the uh, Nickelback music video, watch the movie, and go back to the music video. That was just one of the cool things the tape had. Um, and still to this day, I mean, unfortunately, on my birthday, I had school from 8 to 3, and then after that, I had work. Which work was cool. I'm not mad about that. I mean, I drove the ambulance for the first time. That's a huge plus. I thought that was the huge birthday. That was a pretty good birthday thing. Um, and so I had a good birthday, and throughout the day, I'm like, Spider-Man. I gotta watch Spider-Man. I need to watch my birthday movie. I need to watch Spider-Man. And I'm sitting down and I'm listening to the soundtrack. I mean, there are some amazing songs on this soundtrack. Obviously the main theme is iconic. Nickelback has, or sorry, Chad Kroger has his song, and it's just the whole soundtrack is great. You go off like they have like an Aerosmith one. There's a couple other songs that were good. Um, but one of the things that make this movie amazing is the score. And I have it right here because I'm that big. Um, just Danny Elfman, I think I would argue is one of the most underrated composers. I mean, like when you think composers, you don't usually think to go to him immediately. There are some other guys you go to, but I would argue that he is just one of the greatest composers. I mean, it's just something about the soundtrack that makes me feel so energetic and alive, and like I can feel like Spider-Man. Like it's the music to me is probably the best thing about this movie. Man, it just hits different when you have the Spider-Man theme going on. It's just you know what you're in for. It's just something magical, I guess. I don't know what you'd say, magical, I guess. But Danny Elfman is extremely underrated, and he did a phenomenal job on this soundtrack, as he does on most of his soundtracks. Um, I don't know what he has done that was bad, but I think this and Corpse Bride, I mean, chef's kiss. I mean, I'd hire him for a movie score anytime. Um, yeah, so score to me is just something important. I never noticed score. I thought score didn't matter until I started getting into film and I rewatched some of these movies, and I'm like, wow, music does so much to progress everything. I mean, story arc, feelings, character development. It does a lot of stuff, and that you don't even notice until you sit down and think about, wait a minute, what does this score do in this moment, and how impactful is it? And I think the score is very impactful in this movie. Now, breaking it down, Sam Raimi is a fantastic director. I do think that he is one of the underrated guys. I mean, it was like a miracle when he came to work for Doctor Strange 2. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's Sam Raimi, the guy who directed Spider-Man. And I'm like, I don't hear that a lot until it came down to him directing Doctor Strange 2. And I like Doctor Strange too, but this is about Spider-Man. I think he does a fantastic job in here, and I'm surprised he doesn't do more comic book movies. Sam Raimi is a unique directing style. In here, I think in Spider-Man 1 is very classic, and he got more liberties in Spider-Man 2. So direction was a phenomenal. Also acting. A lot of people can argue that they don't like Tobey Maguire. I think Tobey Maguire is a perfect Spider-Man. And everyone's like, oh, he's a good Peter Parker, but not a very good Spider-Man. And I'm just like, how? Just how? I mean, when I look at him, I look at the classic Sam Raimi Spider-Man suit. I'm like, oh, that's Spider-Man. And then when you see the clips, you watch the movie, and he's swinging, and I'm like, okay, that's Spider-Man. Like the swinging, the music, the setup, fighting the Goblin, it's just perfect. I mean, I see Spider-Man, and if you don't see Spider-Man, that's fine. But to me, this is Spider-Man, and I hate when I hear arguments of who's the best Spider-Man, because I think they're all great. But I hate that to prove your point of why you like the other, you got to take down the other two. I think they're all great, and I think Tobey Maguire was a great Spider-Man and a great Peter Parker. I think all in all, he was a good Spider-Man. I mean, he did all the right stuff, but acting-wise, I think he did a phenomenal job. Yeah, and then other acting, obviously William Dafoe. I too think that I feel like all the actors are very underrated in this movie. I think the one person who got an outbreak due to this movie was James Franco. And really, I mean, he's still kind of under the thing. I mean, he got really successful based off this, and he really wasn't part of the movie. James Franco, he really was. I mean, if you go back, you think about it, he really wasn't. I mean, he was the best friend, and then he was the roommate, but he never was like there. Sometimes you see him talking to Norman, and then Norman would walk past him and talk to Peter. And I understand that due to the fact that it was presented perfectly, due to the fact that Norman pushed aside his own son. And it shows us how like distraught and how abusive Norman is, and how he doesn't care about Harry, and how Harry feels that he's part in the background. But it was true with the story. Harry was not a main character. It was about, obviously, Peter. It was about MJ. And it was about Norman. Those were the three main characters, and Harry was in the background. But I would say that throughout him, he was the one whose professional career went forward, where a lot of these guys already had a successful career. I mean, Tobey Maguire had a pretty successful child acting career. Kristen Dunst had a phenomenal child acting. Her first role was Interview with a Vampire, and her second big movie role was Jumanji. So you got two big child actors, and you got James Franco. James Franco came out in the top of it. Kristen Dunst, I think this is her best performance. Especially in the Spider-Man franchises, she gets a little loose in the last two. She gets a little annoying. Here, she has the greatest character development of all. I think Peter has the great character development, but it's really MJ's character development, and it's through her relationships is what we see her development. Obviously, she was being abused by her dad. Her dad and her mom were in a toxic relationship. They fought, they argued. MJ was stuck in the middle, and she presented that with obviously with what we see with the parents, and we just get that through more throughout the franchise. But we see it in Flash Thompson. She's dating the top bully of the school, the cool guy. She's just there, but Flash never treats her like a person. She's an object. And that goes from it. Peter, the conversation with Peter, helps her break up with Flash. But what does she do? She gets with Harry. And what does Harry do? He treats her like an object. She wear the dress to impress my dad. And he was like, he just wanted to impress her. He wanted to use her. And he never truly respected her. He may have loved her, but he never respected her. And that's what she realized is Peter was the only one who respected her. And it was the interactions with Spider-Man that actually helped her realize that she loved Peter because Peter respected her. I think she has the greatest story arc in this movie and in the entire franchise. Just this movie though. The rest of her character development, the franchise it's wavered, unfortunately, but it is wavered. Sticking on the MJ with me liking this movie way more than the second one. I love her hair in this movie. It's a small detail. Her hair is like a red. It's dark. It looks comic accurate. She wears that little it's comic accurate. To me, I thought it was very comic accurate. And when you get to the second movie, she doesn't wear a comic accurate outfit, and her hair is longer with bright orange hair. I don't like it. I hate it. So that's just a big plus that I love her hair in this movie so much more. That's just the thing that I always have to say every time I talk about it. I hate her hair in the second movie, and I love it in this movie. It's a small thing. It really doesn't matter. So that's MJ. Of course, I know I started talking about Norman, but I'm gonna take a step back and go back to Peter's development. Peter's development, pretty basic. I mean, you get that classic story, where nerd get bit by a radioactive spider, starts getting power, starts getting cocky. He starts feeling all this like power that he's never felt before, and he doesn't know the responsibility to it yet. So he's lashing out, gets to a fight. Really not his fault, but he gets into a fight. Then he gets into a fight with Uncle Ben. And that character development, losing Uncle Ben, he hasn't learned the responsibility yet. He heard the phrase, he heard it, he lost Uncle Ben, but he hasn't developed it. Because what does he do? He goes and gets revenge. He goes after the guy. He beats him up pretty well. He busts open the car. He has him go flying. Make sure the guy crashes. He didn't stop the crash. He jumped out the way, and the guy crashed himself. He could have hurt the guy. He didn't care. He wanted revenge. And he gets the opportunity, and he realizes, this guy I could have just stopped, killed my Uncle Ben. It's the development there. There he understands with the power he had to stop this guy, could have saved Uncle Ben's life. So he blames himself, doesn't want revenge anymore. The controversy part, does Spider-Man push him? Absolutely not. I mean, if you look at the distance, they're nowhere near each other. Spider-Man puts the gun out of his hand. The guy steps back, trips, falls over. I got into an argument with one of my best friends back in the day. Spider-Man pushed him. Spider-Man did not push him. It doesn't help in Spider-Man 3 that they make it a whole Spider-Man killed this guy. Spider-Man killed Sandman afterwards. Spider-Man didn't push him. Spider-Man didn't even threaten him. Like, he deflected the gun, put the gun on the ground. The guy walked back, fell out the window. Personally, that's how I see it. I feel like to me, that's very clear. Spider-Man never kills. But that starts his character arc. You know, then every conversation with Aunt May, it's a new character arc. Now, now I'm gonna go to it. I'm still skipping past Norman and Willem Dafoe because I need time to develop and think about that. We're gonna start with Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben, caring father figure. We don't know what happened to Peter's parents. Uncle Ben raised them. Seems to have a good relationship with them, and they grow on painting. I mean, even in the worst, when they were fighting, he still had no problem taking them to the library, sit down, have a talk with them. We really didn't get that much. There was no character development, but he was very mentally, I don't know, stable. He was very understanding with his words, and he was really wise. So he helped Peter in the development, and he even helped Peter in his development even after he dies. And rest in peace to the actor. And that was a phenomenal scene. And when I was a kid, I would bawl my eyes. I mean, that was just so emotional. That was heart-wrenching seeing that. And Tobey Maguire's acting, I mean, you can say what it is, but he was crying. I mean, when I was a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy lost his uncle. Like, he's just going for it. He's just crying. And I'd feel it. My heart would start beating. I would get sad a little bit. And then he would go off and the music would start playing. I'm telling you guys, the music is phenomenal. If you go back and watch this movie, wait for the beats, because you take out the music, it's not the same. Every scene, when he's testing out his powers, when on the track Revenge, so much stuff. When he takes a second before he swings, and it's the bass is like, it's just something in the music, and the music is just phenomenal. And Uncle Ben and Aunt May have great character development for Peter. Not much for themselves, but they are key factors in Peter's development. Finally, Norman. He's the outstanding, he's the star. I mean, you nailed it. You nailed Green Goblin. You will not find a better Green Goblin. You will not find a better actor. You just can't. I mean, I don't know how you could. We get this introduction of Norman being a dad, and his son seems to be a little bit embarrassed. And that's because he's rich. He's rich. We see him as a hardworking, we see him as a scientist, we see him as a dad who tries a little bit harder, who tries to get along with his son, but he just wants his son to be like, I'm not saying he was a good dad. I don't think he was a good dad at all. I'm just saying he tried. I mean, we could see, like, I could see him like putting forth some effort to make sure his son has the best of the best. And I feel like that's what Harry had. Harry was pretty privileged. And then even after high school, he graduated, and yeah, that's Marky comment, but he got them an apartment, you know. So he was there for his son. We see him as a dad a little bit, but we see him as a scientist. We see there he made his own company and it's struggling, and they have a deadline, and to reach that deadline, he goes through a transformation. He puts himself through a thing to an experiment, and it messes with his mind. It also messes with his body, makes him a little bit stronger. And it's really, after that, it's all Willem Dafoe. It's all acting. It's all split personality. It's all Goblin versus Norman, Goblin versus Spider-Man, Goblin versus Peter. I mean, everything was just perfect. And there's no exact moment, but every single time he's on screen, he steals it. I mean, just the brutal stuff that Green Goblin does. I mean, in the end of the movie, he attacks Aunt May and he kidnaps Mary Jane. And then on top of kidnapping Mary Jane, he makes Spider-Man choose between the love of his life and a bunch of children who did nothing wrong. I mean, he's sick. He's sick. I mean, he really is. and it's what's great. And then he beats up Spider-Man to a pulp. I mean, he's about to kill him, and it's just amazing. That whole end of the scene, the whole battle, it's phenomenal. That whole ending scene, and have Spider-Man's mask all ripped up and Goblin beating him down and Spider-Man fighting back. It's a short final battle scene, but I think it's very impactful because it was all about characters. I feel like this whole movie is a very character-based movie. On top of action. I mean, we get the parade battle scene. We get the house on the apartment buildings on fire scene, and then we get this final scene. It's very big scenes and important scenes, but it's really the character and the character development that makes this movie so rich. Just a tidbit. I don't want to forget J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, probably the best casting in there. There's a reason they brought him back. I mean, he is phenomenal casting. It's hard. I feel like they nailed it on the first run, the first bat. I mean, we had a chance to get a James Cameron Spider-Man, but thank goodness that we got this movie instead, because I think they nailed it. I mean, I think they really nailed it. I mean, what is the negative that you can say? It's some of the CGI looks dated. It's from 20 years ago. If we can say that this movie looks dated, then we're not allowed to watch any movie past 15 years ago. Like, if we can't watch a movie past 2010, when did Avatar come out? If we can't watch a movie past Avatar, we'll never watch a movie again. I mean, look at the animated stuff in the 90s. I mean, they look nothing like the animated stuff now. That doesn't mean they didn't have good character development and stuff. I mean, look at the Terminator movies. When Arnold comes out, you can tell that CGI. You can tell his face doesn't look right. It doesn't stop the movie from being a phenomenal movie, no. And really, I was looking, and there are some parts that, okay, that's CGI, or okay, that's green screen. But it's really during the day. At nighttime, you can't tell. You're like, oh my gosh, that looks phenomenal for 20 years old. This movie is 20 years old last May. This upcoming May, it'll be able to go to the bars and drink. This movie is decently old. This movie, I think, has reached the test of time. And some people say there's better Spider-Man movies. And I'm not here to argue. I think every single Spider-Man movie that ever came out is a phenomenal movie. I just think this is my favorite. And I'm breaking down parts of why. I personally think that. Going back to the fire scene. Love the representation of firefighters in this movie. Great movie. Great scene to see firefighters. It's also a great scene. Cops have an obligation to turn Spider-Man, but they let him save a life. And of course we know it's Green Goblin now, but he went back to save a life. He saves a child from a burning building. It's just something about that scene just brings together Spider-Man. Sure, we get the montages and people's reaction to Spider-Man, and we get J. Jonah Jameson's reaction to Spider-Man, and we get a couple glimpses, and we get to see the photography stuff. But it was really in this moment where we feel Spider-Man. Spider-Man. And I feel like this equally counters Green Goblin's statement. No matter, what is it, there's 10 billion people in this and they'll love you until you're their enemy. The one thing the more loved than a hero is a hero fall dying trying. And I think that this movie, whole thing, represents it perfect. The rise and the fall of Spider-Man. Except for the one part that Green Goblin wasn't expecting. New York as a community loves each other. Now that's what they represent in the movie. Green Goblin has these kids, Spider-Man saves these kids, and MJ. Wasn't expecting that, right? So Green Goblin goes to attack him, hoping to kill the kids and MJ. Well, he's going to attack Spider-Man. New Yorkers start throwing stuff at him, and he goes, "You're gonna mess with a guy trying to save a bunch of kids?" And then he was like, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. It shows the representation of New York. And they really put that in there because of what happened a year prior in New York with the Twin Towers and 9/11, and they brought that in to represent the unity of New York and other people and places that right from wrong. It's some guy's trying to save someone, you don't mess with them. It's pretty basic, but it's a good character thing that it stops the concept that Green Goblin was right, because Green Goblin wasn't right. Sure, I mean, it seemed that he was right, but when it came down to it, they realized Spider-Man was trying to save these people, and they knew that Green Goblin was bad, so they protected Spider-Man and turned their backs on Green Goblin. Not that they ever had his back, but yeah, so yeah, Green Goblin, his philosophy didn't work. And it was just, I mean, that was a great thing. There's a lot of stuff going on with Spider-Man in New York at that time. Twin Towers. Obviously, Twin Towers was used quite a lot in their marketing while preparing for me getting excited to watch the movie. I looked at their old trailers and listened to the music, and heavily used are the Twin Towers. Some of you may know that they used it in a trailer where they had I think these guys, I think it was a bank robbery or something, and they stole this helicopter. Spider-Man webbed up this helicopter in between the two Twin Towers, and that's how they used it as a introducing Spider-Man coming May of next year. And they banned the trailer due to the fact of the 9/11 bombings of the Twin Towers. But it's still on YouTube. I mean, that's a very fascinating thing. I love to see that. It was very cool, and that's our history. And it's funny that Spider-Man was in the midst of the history. And of course, there was Spider-Man 9/11 comic books. There's an Avengers 9/11 comic book. So it was that whole thing, and I loved how in this movie it's represented as a community of New York coming together to fight the Green Goblin. Yeah, that was it. I mean, I don't know. I just loved this movie. I love to talk about this movie. I watch it every year on my birthday. It's something about it. Like I said, directing was good. Casting was good. Music was fantastic. I mean, acting was phenomenal. CGI, really not that bad. I mean, I hear a lot of crap on the CGI. It's really not that bad. I mean, I've seen worse from newer movies. I mean, yeah, you think the CGI was bad back then. There's always going to be good movies with CGI. There's always going to be bad movies with CGI. It's just a thing. And I feel, personally, CGI is not that bad. So, that's my review on Spider-Man 2002. I don't think I missed anything. I think I hit everything and a little bit above, like I wanted to. I just love Spider-Man as a whole. I love this movie as a whole. I'm just so happy I grew up on this movie, and this movie just makes me feel so happy. When I was literally driving home, so excited because I'm like, I finally get to watch Spider-Man, and I'm listening to the music, and I'm just having a blast. I'm just can't wait to come home and watch the movie. And I did, and it's just, the movie to me is the same. It's the same it was when I was watching a kid. It's still just as good. Maybe I have drunk goggles on, like maybe I'm just so in love with this movie, I'm blinded by the age. But personally, this movie is timeless. I think this movie is phenomenal. And I'm going to be watching it, and I hope one day when I have kids, they'll watch it with me on my birthday. That's just a small thing. I really do feel like this is going to be my forever movie. Just a cool little add-on. I have this magazine about the movie. It has exclusive interviews with Tobey Maguire, Kristen Dunst, and Willem Dafoe, the three main cast. Like I said, those were the three main people. Harry was a side character, and J. Jonah Jameson was a side character. And then top villain, top five, top 10 Spider-Man villains, and then a free comic preview. I think that stuff's cool. I love collecting those, but this is my prize. Um, you have a film reel of the scene where he's fighting in the fire and he's fighting Green Goblin, and Green Goblin throws his pumpkin bombs and they spread out and they cut him. Um, I think that's really cool, and it also comes with a little message. I picked that up. I was like, that's amazing. For my favorite movie, I'm of course picking that up. So that's my little thing. Some important scenes. I mean, Uncle Ben's death. Peter and MJ talking in the backyard. Each of the scenes with the Goblin. Anytime Goblin was talked is pretty much important. I think they used his character phenomenally. Yeah, this is my favorite movie. If you love Spider-Man as much as I do, please like and subscribe. That would be great. And yeah, I talk a lot about Marvel stuff. I'll talk about DC stuff. Right now, I'm very in a Marvel mood. I don't know why, it just happens. Sometimes I'll be in a Batman mood or a DC mood in general. Usually reflects on the movies that are coming out. Sometimes it's just my personal feeling. Watch Spider-Man every year on my birthday. It's just how I'm feeling. Yeah, please like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you guys